Today we have a trash-picked PlayStation 3 Slim model CECH3001 Bravo. I'm always amazed at what people throw away. This could be in perfect working order, just a little bit dirty, might need some repairs. It might not be fixable, and we might be able to get some parts out of it to put on the shelf to repair future PlayStation 3s. Let's dive on in. Let's see if it'll even turn on. Nope, drive spins up and then it shuts down. We do get the red light, so we are getting power. Could easily be a hard drive fault, but we're going to open her up, we'll dig into it and see if we can find the issue why this PlayStation 3 is not working. So we're not going to put too much time into cleaning the outside. I'm just going to get some of the dirt and grime out. Like I said, this was picked from an eWaste facility, but it was kind of stored outside. It was in a little covered facility, but it was open to the air. So got the surface dust cleaned off. First thing we're going to do is remove the hard drive up front. Should be a 320 gigabyte drive, unless somebody was in here and upgraded it. Like I said, I do suspect we have some issues with this drive. Looks like our bracket is broken there, so we can probably put a little bit of glue on to hold that down better. Put that to the side for now. Let's see. So yeah, it is a 320 gigabyte drive. We'll hook that up later and see if there's anything on there, if it is indeed corrupt, or if we can fix it. Alright, let's open her up. It's not as dusty as what I expected, but it's still a little dirty. Looks like we got something left in here. NCAA football. Let's see what year it is. Here we go. NCAA football 2013. That's a nice little surprise. We're just going to wipe the front of this felt off with a wet cloth to get the dust off. It should be black, but with the dust it had a little gray tint to it. Now we're going to unplug both Wi-Fi antenna. There's a black and white cable. Just plug into the board back here, and then they're kind of snaked through. Just little retainers holding it. Not actually attached, just sliding under those little arms. So we'll just pull those off, put them off to the side. Probably wipe them off with a cloth to get some surface dust. Then we're also going to take the front power and eject panel off as well. You just pull the wire out from the board, and that'll pop right off. Next, we're going to remove the motherboard and its shielded enclosure from the bottom half of the case. Just a bunch of screws. Unscrew those and the whole thing will pop right out. Now let's get all the plastic pieces together, and we're going to put them in the bath to get all the dirt and dust off. The brackets that I'm removing now hold the heatsink tight up against the processors.
We want to make sure that when we reinstall these, we evenly put pressure. That way you can get a good contact between the heatsink and the processors. When we flip the motherboard over, we see the old thermal compound. This definitely needs replaced. You want to have a really good amount of thermal compound on top of the CPU to help dissipate the heat. Anytime you get rid of old thermal compound, you want to make sure you clean the surface extremely well. You want to get all the residues off. You want to make sure you get any fuzz from the cloth or material you're using. If you can use a lint-free cloth, that's best. Use that with some rubbing alcohol and you'll get the surface very clean. Just as important as cleaning the processor side, you want to clean the heatsink side. Do it the exact same way, preferably a lint-free cloth with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Rub until everything comes off. Don't be afraid to use constant cloths to make sure you're not smearing around any of the old paste. And of course, we can't forget to clean the fan as well. This fan wasn't very loud. You could hear it running, but it wasn't overly loud. And it really wasn't overly dusty either. So we're just going to blow it off with some compressed air, and then I'll get in there with a Q-tip just to make sure we get all the big dust out. Now, I really debated on doing this part here, but I've seen some PlayStation 3 with boot issues, mostly because they weren't having good contact between the processor and the board due to less than quality solder. The easiest way to do this is get a heat gun. I like to heat up the entire board to prevent any sort of thermal warping. And then we're going to focus on each of the processors, put a lot of heat on the top of it. You want to make sure the board is on a flat surface when you do this, so that way as the solder balls on the bottom of the processor melt, they melt evenly and it allows the processor to sit back where it should be. Again, I really debated doing this, but I figure I had the board, everything was apart, I might as well do it. Next, we're going to add some thermal paste. Everybody has their own technique. Some people do X's, some people smear it on. I just like to put a drop right in the middle and then let pressure spread the thermal compound around. So we're going to bring the heatsink and top RF shield. Heatsink kind of just sits right on top there. One's actually removable. So we're going to pop that one back in. And then we'll bring the board over. Now you'll notice here the fan isn't installed yet, and this is something I actually had to undo this step. The fan's supposed to go in first because it screws into the bottom and sits around the heat sinks in there. Once I got the board back in and everything buttoned up, I realized I had to put the fan on. So I had to take everything back apart and put the fan back on. So again, these are the brackets that we talked about earlier. This is what puts pressure between the top of the processor and the heatsink itself. It's incredibly important that you have a very good contact between the processor and the heatsink to ensure that you dissipate heat correctly. So we got the fan installed correctly this time. We had the CD-ROM all hooked up. The front buttons are hooked up. Wi-Fi is reinstalled. Now I'm putting the bottom part, the bottom plastic shield for the power supply in. That way we can do some testing without shorting anything out.
All right, here we go. The hard drive is back in. I have a controller plugged in. Power supply is just temporary put in the back. I don't want to put everything back together and have to run into an issue. We do have the red light on, so let's see. No, still no love. We'll keep messing around, see if we can figure out something here. Alright, so you can see we're ripped back apart. I do have the power supply installed. It is live, getting good 120 volts. I am getting 5 volts standby, so we are getting 5 volts here, and we're getting the good 12 volts going to the board. But what we're not getting is 5 volts to the USB. So that tells me the power supply is good. The power problem is somewhere on the main board. Alright, so we want to make sure there are no shorts on the capacitor. So the easiest way to do that is put your multimeter into continuity mode, put your black on the ground. The ground would be a thick line the whole way around. Sometimes it would be labeled, sometimes it's not. And then with your positive test lead, you're going to start touching each leg of the capacitor. So we have continuity to ground on that leg, and we'll check the other one. Nothing. So we know that capacitor is good. We'll move on to the next one. Continuity. Nothing. And we keep doing this for every single capacitor on the board. And eventually, we'll find one, hopefully one, that has continuity and ground on both legs. So, we'll keep chugging here and see what we find. Oh. That's our guy right there. We have continuity on both legs, so we know that is a known bad capacitor. I don't have anything handy. I'm just gonna mark it with a piece of tape right now so we know that one's bad, and we're gonna keep checking. Alright, so we know we have 3 bad capacitors. This guy, this one, and this one. They're all the same value. There are some smaller capacitors on this board as well as on the back, some smaller surface mount ones. I'm not going to test those on camera because there's really no easy way that I can do that without obstructing your view. So I'm going to test those and I'm going to report back. Well, we're going to have to leave it here for now. This video's gone long enough and we don't have any answers yet. I did order some capacitors, mostly because I actually don't have any surface mount capacitors on standby. So I ordered a large assortment, that way I have them for future projects. We'll replace these 3 and we'll see if that happens, but we're going to have to do that in another video. I hope you enjoyed this so far. Tune back again so we can do part 2 of this, and if you like what we're doing over here at Retro Tech or Die, please like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.